Welcome back to Rocky Mountain Gardens. Today I am doing a question and answer video that some of my viewers have requested and have posted questions for me to talk about today. So I chose some, and I thank my viewers who actually took the time to write questions in the comments for me to make this, I hope, an interesting video for you. Now, my daughter, she actually asked me, why did I start a YouTube channel? So I thought I'd begin with that one. And the real reason is because I've been an avid gardener for most of my life, even when I was a little girl. I enjoyed being outdoors, and my dad grew tomatoes and, a few other vegetables in the garden. And he tried his hand at it, and it just was interesting to me. Oh, as well as my Aunt Kathy, who was an amazing rose gardener. And she always brought us bouquets of roses when we were having family dinners. So I had two good examples in my life of gardening. Consequently, out here in Colorado, where it's more difficult to garden, I started a garden in my backyard when I moved into this house in 1997. So it's been a while. And I've done some videos about how I transformed my backyard. But I always had people coming over and asking me, how in the world do you have a garden like this in Colorado? And I thought, well, I can help out people who live out here in the West with tips about gardening in this difficult climate. So I thought, well, I'll start making some videos about gardening here in the West. And that's where my name for my YouTube channel came, Rocky Mountain Gardens. But as you know, gardening is not a year-round hobby, especially here where we have short summers. So I thought, well, what else can I do the rest of the year to, make some interesting videos for my subscribers? And because I've always been interested in old furniture, vintage pieces, and decorating, of course, for all of the holidays, I started adding those types of videos to my channel. So that's my answer, I guess, for that one. And then my friend Deb Strout, who's comments on my videos all the time, I want to give her a shout out. She's such a wonderful subscriber. She asked me several questions. So I think I'll start with one of her first ones that she asked me, which was, tell more about my time when I lived in Germany. Now, I lived there in the 1980s. I lived there for 8 years, and I lived in a very small town called Bad Windsheim. I'll show a picture here of the Rathaus, which is the city hall of a town in our town. And I just lived a couple of blocks away from the Rathaus. And then I taught at a school on an army post, and the army post was called Stork Barracks. It was a Luftwaffe, or German Air Force base during World War II. And then the Americans took it over, after the war, and turned it into an army post. And that is where I worked. Here's the entry to Stork Barracks. And it was right next to a very tiny town called Illesheim. And then inside the post was the American school. Here's a photo of that as well. And that school is where I worked. I actually got a job working for the Department of Defense, and there was a program in those days. I think it's still around, although the name might have changed. It was called the Department of Defense Dependence Schools. So there were schools created on all of the military bases in Europe after World War II, so that the military, the Army or Air Force guys that were serving, or women too, could bring their families over for a 3-year tour, usually, sometimes 4, and then they would have to have a school for their children, and the schools were then created. It's an entire school system overseas. And anyway, enough about that, but I actually worked in that school at Ellisheim Elementary School, and I taught school there for 8 years. It was a school that went from kindergarten to 8th grade, and it was a lot of fun, and my friends there were fantastic. All of us teachers actually had to live off post in a German town. It was a lovely little town, just beautiful German architecture, and I made a lot of German friends, both on post and off post. It was a very, very fun, exciting time when I was in my 20s. Anyway, it was just so exciting. And I did a lot of shopping, flea markets. There were these old buildings that the Germans used to collect furniture that people wanted to get rid of, and they put them in these old barns. And I had German friends who would take me to a barn where I would find a nice piece of furniture for a very inexpensive cost. And then I could bring it back to the post at Stork Barracks, where there was a craft shop. And the craft shop, and this answers one of the other questions that I had later, the craft shop was this large facility where you could bring your furniture or any project up. And there was a Swedish man named Henry who ran the craft shop, and he taught me so many things that I knew or know now about stripping furniture, repairing it, refinishing it, you know, and using different techniques to create just a lovely piece of furniture from this German antique. And so up there in the the craft shop, I did, my very first piece was this one that I'm going to show you here. And it was covered with milk paint. Now, milk paint, I know, is kind of coming into popularity right now here in the furniture painting business. But I don't have a good place in my heart for milk paint because it was very extremely hard to strip off any furniture. And this pine furniture, which has, you know, like little ridges from the wood grain, it was just so hard to get it off. I just would have to scrape it and sand it, and oh my goodness, it was just awful. And so much work. So that piece is in my kitchen. I'm sure you've seen it. I want to show you when I bought it. It had this big gouge in it from the inside. A whole section of the side of the piece was pushed out. It almost looked like someone had shot a shotgun, and the furniture on the inside was bent out in pieces. It was just really crazy. But my friend Henry helped me cut that piece out into a rectangular shape that we could then put another piece of pine in and fit it in, glue it in and everything, and attach it so that it looks almost perfect now. And here's a close-up of how it looks. You can see the edges of that rectangle that we cut out. That was really quite a project for my first one, but it was through that and many others that followed, I was able to really get kind of good at this hobby. Besides barn shopping in flea markets, I also started doing something called junking. And in those days, in the 80s, the Germans had very small trash cans, and they would put out their big trash that wouldn't fit into their trash cans twice a year. And those days are, you know, I had a friend, Martha, who was one of my teacher friends. She and I loved this. And we would go out at night after work when it was dark, of course, because it would be dark early in Germany. And we would go looking for treasures in other people's trash, literally trash to treasure. And we went out, and one of the coolest things that I ever found was this little piece. I'm gonna stand up here so I can show you a close-up of it. And I did talk about this in an earlier video, like I said, but it's like a cup with a handle, but it has this spout on it in this piece here that blocks. And I had to ask one of my German friends, what is this? And she told me that it was used for people who were sick and lying in bed, to give them drinks of, whatever, hot soup, tea. When they were too sick to sit up in bed, they could drink out of this spout, and you could tip it over, and this would protect it from coming out of the cup, falling out into their face, enabling them to have a drink, which was a really clever invention, don't you think? Anyway, going junking was a super fun thing, and my friend Martha and I had so much fun doing that. To talk a little bit more about my time in Germany, I also belonged to an international ski club, which was made of Germans and Americans, and we would go down probably, multiple times during the ski season in buses mostly to Austria to ski. They have wonderful skiing there. And I have a couple of pictures of us that I thought I'd show you. One of us on the slopes that you can see here. And then there's another one of us sitting around after skiing at a Gasthaus and having some lovely, probably we were drinking Glühwein, which is a hot spiced German wine, and maybe having some snacks. Joan Shute, who is another one of my faithful followers, asked me, how long have I been flipping? And so getting back to my time in Germany, I would say we probably were flipping, I don't know. I think I started it when I was teaching in Wyoming with my friend Sally. We took a little class at the junior college on how to restore and strip and, renew an old piece, an antique or whatever. And that was a really fun little class. So then after that, I really got interested in it. And I think I just all my life have been a crafter and a decorator. Even when I was a little girl, we had a very small house that I grew up in, only 2 bedrooms. And I talked my dad into building me my own bedroom down in the basement, and I spent so much time trying to create a pretty bedroom for myself. I was probably in high school, and painting and creating a piece of furniture. My dad was a real handyman. He helped me make a desk pretty much out of nothing because we lived on a very tight budget with 3 kids and this little tiny house. But I had my own space, and it was so much fun to do. So I guess I started in high school, really. And then throughout the years, depending on where I lived and what I was doing, I was always involved in finding a way to make my house more like a home by just spending as little money as possible and taking old things and making them new, so they fit whatever my decor style was at the time, which, like all of us, we change our, what's the word I want? We change what we like doing, and the colors that are our favorites change over the years, and our styles. I can remember even in college going to antique stores in northern Missouri where I was going to college, and shopping for cool things. I remember in those days you could buy a huge set of depression glass at an antique sort of / junk store, you know, like a 12 place setting you could buy for like $5, I think. It was so cheap. I guess nobody wanted it then, so hence the cheap prices. And that goes back to another question from Deb Strout. She asked, did I go to college? And yes, I did. I paid my way through college myself. I worked really hard and didn't have to do any student loans or anything like that. I simply worked 2 jobs in the summer, and I worked in our dorm cafeteria, you know, all through the school year, and I made enough money. Of course, college was way cheaper back in those days, but I also was able to save up the money to pay for everything and graduate with no debt. So I went to college and I got my degree. I got a Bachelor's of Science in Education for elementary education, and I was certified to teach kindergarten through 8th grade. And over the course of my years as an educator, I taught, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grades. I like to switch around. I guess I get bored easily. I like to change up what I'm doing. And then, also later, after I came back from Germany, I got my master's in library science so that I could be a school librarian. And I started working when I was in Colorado as a school librarian. And I just love that work because I love working with small children. That's really my favorite age. And teenagers, I'm not so great with. I mean, they're okay. I don't dislike them, but I get a lot of joy from working with young children. I just think they are the best. So much fun. And I guess their amazement with everything in the world that we as adults take for granted always makes my heart I get very amused by every little things that they say, and they're just, like I said, they're simply a joy. And by the way, if you haven't been drinking a coffee, try taking a sip of something right now. I'm using my favorite Johnson Brothers Ironstone transferware for my coffee this morning. Love Johnson Brothers and their transferware. It is just beautiful. Now, another of my favorite subscribers, his name is Dave, and he's from Ireland, and he has asked me some questions about making videos, how I make them. His first question was, how do I put my videos together? Now, in my job as a librarian, I had to work with technology all the time, and at work we used PCs. But at home, I decided once I got an iPhone that I wanted to get a Mac, and I also have an iPad. So I have all 3 of those Apple products that all work well together. All Macs come with software for making movies or videos. It's called iMovie. And that's how I started. My first videos I made with iMovie. And it was not really hard to learn. It's pretty user-friendly. And because I use technology all the time in my job as a librarian, I think I had a little bit of an advantage, I guess you would say, to help teach myself how to use iMovie. Well, after using iMovie for about a year, I found that I was having some troubles. It wasn't working as well as I wanted, and it also didn't let me do as many fun things with my videos as I would have liked. So I looked around for something else. I didn't want to spend a lot of money because my whole life I have always lived on a budget. And so I found another product made by Wondershare, and their program is called Filmora. I think they're on Filmora 10 right now. And honestly, guys, it is not expensive at all. I think I paid $69 for the program, and I get it forever on my Mac, and I also get the upgrades. They're included. So if you're thinking about doing videos, I really recommend Filmora because it offers so many more things that than iMovie. And plus, besides being inexpensive, it is also very easy to learn. If you know how to use iMovie, it's very easy to transfer to Filmora and learn how to use that. It's very user-friendly. And anyway, that's my product that I use for creating my videos. And I use my iPhone for filming. And that's all I have. I don't have any fancy cameras or expensive equipment at all. Being budget wise, that's what I do. Dave also wanted to know how long it takes me to put a video together. Well, it depends on how hard it is. If I'm doing a video like this where I'm just talking to you and I don't need to do a lot of editing, it might take 1 to 2 hours. If it is, and that's just after I've downloaded it to my Mac and start working on it, it's about 1 to 2 hours. Of course, there's the filming time and setting things up and so on, and then uploading it to YouTube, which takes a while. But you know, you just set it to upload to YouTube and then you walk away. But it can take 4 or 5 hours for me to upload, depending on how long the video is that I made. And then the other thing though is when I'm doing a more complicated video, like a flipping video where I have lots of little clips that I'm connecting together, and I'm also voicing over the video, which means there's no sound on the video itself. I talk and tell you what I'm doing in the video during that video. That takes a lot longer. Sometimes I've spent 4 hours on a video to put it together so that it, you know, has some flow to it and makes sense too with all these little clips that I'm putting together. Now, Deb Strout also asked me, how did I end up in Colorado? Well, I had my first job out of college was teaching elementary school in Wyoming. And I always, when I was a little girl, I watched Westerns and I just loved cowboys and all those, you know, Wild West stories. So I always wanted to live out west. Having grown up in Missouri, the West just seemed so appealing. And I moved out for that job in Wyoming, and during the summertime, I worked in Colorado at a summer camp for wealthy kids from wealthy families. And most of us who worked there, the camp counselors, were all from the Midwest. And I made a lot of wonderful friendships during that time and still am close to them. But in the summertime, I worked in Colorado. I just loved it, and I always wanted to come back to Colorado. So when I finished my time in Germany, I moved back to Colorado and with my daughter. And I guess I should mention now that I did meet my husband in Germany and got married in Germany, but I also got divorced. And my daughter and I moved out here to Colorado, and we've lived here ever since. And the lovely thing is that my daughter and her family live right down the street from me in the same neighborhood. So I'm very close to all of them and love having my little grandsons close by where I can help out taking care of them and so on. So it has been a blessing being here with many, many, many super nice people. Colorado's very friendly and welcoming. And I just have lots and lots of fun living out here. And you probably have seen from my backyard, I have a fantastic view of Pikes Peak. I'm so fortunate to have such a beautiful place to live. And although, you know, that divorce was a very hard and very sad time in my life. I am very blessed to have the Lord as part of my life, and my faith has gotten me through many, many hard times, and which we all experience. And on my channel, I don't like to emphasize the hard times and the struggles. Instead, I want to make happy videos that are inspiring for you to watch. That's really my goal here, and not to, as I said, dwell on the difficult things in life, because all of us, have those problems. And I would like to say to you to come on back to my channel for some inspiration and also a chance to sort of escape from the troubles in life. Our world is in a lot of turmoil these days. So I love to have, and that's what I use YouTube for myself. I watch videos to learn new things and to see beautiful things and forget about all the issues going on around us. So guys, next week, I hope you'll come back on Friday. It's going to be the first week of November, and the video I'm going to have for you is my experience with my travels in Greece. So I hope you'll come back for that. If you've never been to Greece, you might really enjoy this. And I hope it inspires you to make a trip one day there as well. Okay, so bye for now. Have a beautiful weekend, and may God bless.